Stanislas Aignan Julien was a French sinologist who served as the chair of Chinese at the Collège de France for over 40 years and was one of the most academically respected sinologists in French history. Julien was a student of Jean-Pierre Abel-Rémusat, and succeeded him as the chair of Chinese at the Collège de France upon Rémusat's death in 1832. The quantity and quality of Julien's scholarship earned him wide renown, and caused him to become the leading European scholar of China during the 19th century. Among 19th-century scholars of China, Julien's academic reputation was rivaled only by the Scottish sinologist James Legge, and no sinologist equaled his academic reputation until Édouard Chavannes at the turn of the 20th century. Notwithstanding his academic rigor and gifted intellect, Julien had a notoriously thorny personality and publicly feuded with most of his contemporaries, earning broad academic respect but equally broad personal dislike from those who knew him. Biography. Born at Orléans on 13 April 1797, Julien initially struggled to gain higher education due to his family's relative poverty. He studied at the college in Orléans before transferring to the Collège de France, where he initially focused on Greek language and literature before branching out into Arabic, Hebrew, Persian, and Sanskrit. In 1821 he was appointed assistant professor of Greek. In the same year he published an edition of The Rape of Helen of Coluthus with versions in French, Latin, English, German, Italian and Spanish. He attended the lectures of Jean-Pierre Abel-Rémusat on Chinese. In late 1823 Julien met Jean-Pierre Abel-Rémusat, the first ever professor of Chinese at the Collège de France, and began studying Chinese with him. In 1824, only 6 months after meeting Rémusat, Julien began a Latin translation of the Mencius. Working from 8 different Chinese editions and 2 Manchu editions, Julien having simultaneously begun studying Manchu. The work was published in Paris with a lengthy title Mentius vel Mencium inter Sinenses Philosophos, Ingenio, Doctrina, Nominis Claritat Confucio Proximum, edited, Latina Interpretationa, ad interpretationem tartaricam utramque recensita, instruixit, a perpetuo commentario, Isonicis de prompto, illustravit Stanislas Julien. Julien's attention to textual variance among different editions was remarkable for his era, and was lauded by his teacher Rémusat, whose review gave such praises as, M. Julien se livre à une lecture assidue du texte de Mencius, il a étudié le style de cet auteur, et ses pays écoute de tatsi que son langage offre de particularly. Soon afterwards he translated the modern Greek codes of Calvos under the title of La Lie Patriotique de la Grèce. In 1827 he was appointed sub-librarian to the Institut de France. In 1832 he succeeded Abel-Rémusat as professor of Chinese at the Collège de France. In 1833 he was elected a member of the Académie des Inscriptions. For some years his studies had been directed towards the vernacular literature of the Chinese, bringing out translations of Hoi Lan-ki, a drama in which occurs a scene curiously analogous to the Judgment of Solomon, and a Zhao Shiga, the orphan of Zhao, or orphan of the house Dcho. He next turned to the Taoist writings, and translated in 1835 Le Livre des Récompenses et des Peines Tai Shanganying Pian. About this time the cultivation of silkworms was beginning to attract attention in France, and by order of the Minister of Agriculture Julien compiled, in 1837, a résumé des principaux traits chinois sur la culture des mûriers, et l'éducation des vers de Soi, which was speedily translated into English, German, Italian and Russian. He published in 1841 Discussions grammatiques articles sur certaines règles de position qui en chinois, jouent le même rôle que les inflections dans les autres langues, which he followed in 1842 by exercises pratiques d'analyse, de syntaxe, et de lexigraphie chinoise. Meanwhile, in 1839, he had been appointed joint keeper of the Bibliothèque Royale, with the special superintendence of the Chinese books, and shortly afterwards he was made administrator of the Collège de France. In 1842 saw the publication of his translation of the Tao Te Ching. Then he turned his attention to the Buddhist literature of China, and more especially to the travels of Buddhist pilgrims to India, in order that he might better understand the references to Indian institutions and the transcriptions in Chinese of Sanskrit words and proper names. He began the study of Sanskrit, and in 1853 brought out his Voyages du Pella and Haiyu on Sang Da Tang Shi Yuji. 6 years later he published Les Avadanas, Contes et apologues indiens inconnues jusqu'à ce jour, suivis de poésies et de nouvelles chinoises. For the benefit of future students he disclosed his system of deciphering Sanskrit words occurring in Chinese books in his Méthode pour déchiffrer et transcrire les noms sanskrits qui se rencontrent dans les livres chinois. The work had escaped the author's observation that, since the translations of Sanskrit works into Chinese were undertaken in different parts of the empire, the same Sanskrit words were of necessity differently represented in Chinese characters in accordance with the dialectical variations. No hard and fast rule can therefore possibly be laid down for the decipherment of Chinese transcriptions of Sanskrit words. Known for his impatience and bad temper, he had bitter controversies with his fellow sinologists. His Indian studies led to a controversy with Joseph Toussaint Renown. Among the many subjects to which he turned his attention were the native industries of China, producing the Histoire et fabrication de la porcelaine chinoise Jing de Jean Taolu. In another volume he also published an account of the industries anciennes et modernes de l'Empire chinois, translated from native authorities. His last work of importance was Syntaxe nouvelle de la langue chinoise fondée sur la position des mots, suivi d'un traité sur les particules et les principaux termes de grammaire, d'un table des idiotismes, de fables, de legends et d'apologues. For many years the standard grammar for the Chinese language. In politics Julien was imperialist, and in 1863 he was made a commander of the Légion d'honneur in recognition of the services he had rendered to literature during the Second French Empire. In 1872 the Académie des Inscriptions et Belles-Lettres established the Prix Stanislas Julien, an annual prize for a sinological work which was first awarded in 1875. Selected works. Mangt vel mentium intersenenses philosophos, ingenio, doctrina, nominis claritat Confucio proximum, editat, Latina interpretationa, ad interpretationem tartaricam utramque recensita, instruixit, a perpetuo commentario, isonicis de prompto, illustravit Stanislas Julien, Paris. Le livre de la voix et de la vertus composé dans le versicle avant l'ère chrétienne, par la philosophie lautieu, traduit en français et publié avec le texte chinois et un commentaire perpétuel. Paris. Mémoires sur les contrées occidentales. Paris. Histoire de la vie de Huan Tsang. Paris. Histoire et fabrication de la porcelaine chinoise. Paris. Syntaxe nouvelle de la langue chinoise. Paris.